Okay, well, I think we'll get going, and as always, we probably have a few people that will come in during the session here. But again, welcome today to the Lawrence Tech Blue Devil Entrepreneurial Venture Series. Thank you for being here. We also want to thank our sponsors that help us put this on every year and every session, and those include the Office of Student Engagement, the CEO Club, or the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization, the Alumni Association, and the Legends Alumni Association, Lawrence Tech Student Government, and our news partners, which include WWJ News Radio 950 and the Technology Report with Matt Rouse. So again, welcome. The Venture Series here that we have provides an opportunity to get into the mindset of our Lawrence Tech alums who have been successful at product launches, product innovation, and creating companies. And so, and really, part of that is turning dreams into reality. This gives you an opportunity to engage our alumni that we bring here, to fact find, to find out some of the things that you're thinking about, answer some questions that you have on your mind, and get a little bit of insight that might help you in your future, no matter if you're looking to start a company or just move into product development or a level of company creation and really successful products. The forum provides also an opportunity for our alumni who come to Lawrence Tech to engage students at a different level, at a new level, and really get to see campus in a new light. Many of them that we bring on the campus haven't been here in a number of years, and they get to see the huge transformation of campus, not only in its physical structure, but also the student life. The engagement that you have, the area out here in the atrium, the student clubs, and really a lot of the projects that are focused around campus. So today we welcome Javed Mokhbery, President and CEO of FUTEK. Javed earned a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering in 1979, and soon after graduation, he and his brother Mohammed, who is also a Lawrence Tech alum from the College of Management, started a company called FUTEK. And so Javed's here today to talk us a little bit about that. But he's also joined by a very important person, his wife, Zoran. So thank you very much for being here.
My better half.
They flew in on Sunday from California in our windstorm, and so they landed safely, so we're glad to have you that. Today's forum is in a moderated Q&A session, so I'll be asking a preset question. Javed will be answering the question, and then it'll be open up for additional questions from you. And we want you to really ask the questions that you really have on your mind about either product ideas or something that was said here. And so this is an opportunity for you to get to know and maybe shorten your learning curve about some of the things that it's taken 25 years to learn with FUTEK. And speaking of 25 years, you're celebrating your 25th anniversary this year. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So,
thank you.
So,
also 25 years of marriage with Zohre.
So they say that there's certain things in life that create a lot of stress. One of them is getting married. One of them is buying your first house, and one of them is starting a company. And Javed did all three in the same year.
And it's bottom of precision, by the way.
So let's begin here. From the conversations that we've had, I know that your road to the U.S. is an interesting one. You were born in Iran and immigrated here. Can you tell us a little bit about how you became a student at Lawrence Tech?
Sure. I only have 1 hour to talk.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, everything starts with a dream. and I'm a goal setter. One of my major goals at the younger age, that was back in early 60s, was to further my education in United States of America. Again, you have to picture yourself, back in 60, we did not have as much exposure. So what do you think the reaction from people around me or my parents was? Considering I was from a very conservative and religious and protective family, their reaction was just ignoring me. So I knew that I had to build up trust and respect, and be patient, grow up. Meanwhile, I worked on going to the English classes, and also went to the community where I could meet Western tourists. And that way I could get to know about their culture and bring them home, introduce them to, I did bring many tourists home for lunch and dinners and staying there. And that really paved the way that by early 70s, I was able to convince my mom, and then with her help, I got the approval from my dad. And in 1973, I managed to get a visa from United Kingdom and go to London, and which was the first step that I kind of walked the talk in a way. And from there, again, it wasn't as easy to get American visa, but I managed to persist and get that. And in January 20th of 1974, I actually landed in the United States. If you show the next frame, please. That that is me when I arrived. And one story I like to also share is about the attitude and how I always perceived events. When I came from London, my connecting flights was actually in Boston. Then I would make connection to come to Detroit. And I had to go through immigration and get my luggages go through custom. And I remember was very excited, and again I had actually a long hair and beard, and also I was wearing a ship coat, a designer ship coat, which was given to me as a present. I couldn't put it in the luggage, so I was wearing it. So I was definitely getting attention. And so when just the time I was passing through the custom, I was stopped by two very nice heavy-set gentlemen from FBI. And they said, "Please follow me." So I followed them, and they took me around the hall by a closed door. They body searched me. They went through my luggages, all of my paperwork. It took about more than 15 minutes. And then they shook my hand. They said, "Welcome to America." I take that moment as a privilege. I always tell people I was so grateful that I was welcomed by the highest level of American government when I entered in the United States. So rather than looking at profiling or any of those things, again, you have to think back in 74, security was not like today. You could just go in and out. It wasn't like, you would get a stop. But that was really a high moment of that energized me, that how I was welcome. So anyway, I came to Detroit, and again, that was back in 74. To make the story short, I just came to, I had about $350 with me, so I had paid actually I came to Detroit with the admission from DIT, Detroit Institute of Technology. So I started college over there, but also right after that decided to work as a good hammer ice cream man in order to get to know the city and also make some money. And there was when I got introduced to college like Oakland Community College, and so I transferred from there to OCC. And then with the help of my advisors and selecting the major that I was after, actually I was debating between Wayne State, Lawrence, and Oakland Oakland University. And I selected, actually, just like you, made a wise choice and came to, it was LIT at the time, or LTU. And one of the reasons I selected LTU was because of the professors, I was told that they had a day job. They were in the industry. And it was a lot of hands-on experience. And at that time, Lawrence was supported by automotive industry very much. So that's how I landed to Lawrence.
Very good, very good. For those of you that don't know, Detroit Institute of Technology we call the Detroit Institute of Technology alumni also Lawrence Tech alum, and so actually you were here twice. So any questions that you have about regarding the journey here to get here from Iran and what it took to get into Lawrence Tech? No? Okay. Yes?
Why did you choose Detroit?
Very good question. Actually, I was applying for first California, then Texas, and then Detroit. But the admission from DIT came first, and that's where I applied for my visa, so I had to go to that school. So, and it was very interesting in London. Everybody was surprised that why am I going to Detroit? You know, I mean that, but that was great experience.
You had your hand up too? Did you?
Yeah. What was the hardest part about integrating once you got into Detroit?
Very good question. Again, that's, obviously when you come to a new place, you're like a blind person. You do not know, you're at the mercy of people you meet, places you go. It did not have any transportation, so I had to take bus or hitchhike. I got mugged many times, believe it or not, so I learned how to protect myself in the first place. And I knew how to also hitchhike. I remember one story is that I got a ride from this colored person who kept on telling me how stupid I am getting a ride from him. and that it took me to safe area and said, don't ever show up over this area. So, many experiences. I mean, the unexpected things that I managed to survive, and also, again, not to use any excuses. And one of my main points, even of my first goal, if you see, is that I always, dream very big. I also prepared myself. I call it the art of anticipation. That prepared myself for any action. What do I need to do to survive? Because again, as a student, I was going like term by term, as far as financially. Even though I was from well-off family, but I didn't want to get help from home. Wanted to make it on my own, and so that was one. And also, obviously, English and the culture. Culture, the most important part, which college definitely helped us. Colleges, the places that I went helped us significantly on that.
So very good. So the next question would be, what did you experience here at Lawrence Tech that has stayed with you either in memory or in skill sets, and how does that relate to the professors that you've had in college?
Sure. Again, as I said, the main reason I selected Lawrence was because it was kind of a hands-on top of a university. To give you an example, at that time, back in '76 when I joined, we had a handful of girls here, not even, per my memory, not even 5. And so that wasn't the reason we came to college. You couldn't meet. Therefore, my goal was definitely taking advantage of golden opportunity. And one thing I liked, the professors were from industry. So there were lots of support from the industry that you were exposed to, like the laboratories and others directly. And I remember I was advised not to take, we had choices what professor we could take for classes. And I was advised not to take a course with this professor, Professor Dick Lundstrom. And because they said he's extremely demanding, and it doesn't matter how hard you work, if you are lucky, you get a C from him. So I love challenges. I decided to take a course with him. Didn't listen to my peers. And I did. I took my thermodynamic with the Professor Lundstrom, and he really was brutal. He was, you would not believe, he was, first of all, he was excellent about his subject. He was very good. He was very passionate, and about the course, so it would really build up your attention. But didn't matter how hard you worked, he wasn't pleased. But and per Professor Landstrom, I was the only student that in one term I took 3 classes with him, believe it or not. And one of the classes actually was the mechanics of dynamics class that I took with him, which I managed to get an A from him. And not easy, he gave me actually an incomplete before I mean, he made me work in the summertime before he gave me an A. But that, and also we had a choice. And again, I selected him for my senior project. But Professor Landstrom is the reason I got my first job. I mean, he highly recommended me to this company, which really paved the way, and it was a smaller company, about 110, an organization of that, and very involved in sensor. So that definitely, he was a great mentor. And
so he actually made a recommendation not to go to a very large company, to go to a smaller company so that you could have a greater impact and learn more about the people and the culture.
Be more challenged, exactly.
Great.
Yeah, that was the name of the game, because at a smaller company like at GSC, for example, the engineer was responsible for every function, from the design development to sourcing the part to supporting manufacturing, at every level, and also customers. So yes, from that point was really effective.
So one of the things that we talked about was what you walked away with from your education as far as being able to have an idea or innovate or do product development, or what that entrepreneurial mindset was. How did that get embedded in you within the campus environment?
Well, the first part of what I got away was, when you put a project together like that and you have an assistant like Professor Landstrom who is very demanding, that helps you really to fine-tune your action. Is that you are not, you're kind of building up a discipline in the first place, and also learning that, no pain, no gain. So as an entrepreneur, you really do need all of those. You have to be very patient. You have to always set standards. You have to, have a stick in there or hang in there. All of those things you need. And again, the work that we had to do to satisfy the need of the school requirements itself paved the way for us to kind of become, paved the way for me to become solution-minded. And again, that's another one. Best part of it is as far as the attitude. You need to calibrate your expectation. And what's calibrating your expectation? Let's say, for example, when obviously we live in California or coming to Michigan, and I should know I should expect the cold weather. I'm not going to complain or nag about it. I say, stop BMW, betting money and whining. You need to calibrate your expectation to the way that be pleased and satisfied and be effective.
Okay. Great. So I'll turn it over to you guys. What would you like to know more about Javed's time here at Lawrence Tech, or what questions you have? Go ahead.
Before, during, or after being a Lawrence Tech student that you decided to be an entrepreneur?
Thank you. Being from a family, my dad was, he started his first business when I believe he was 9 or 10, believe it or not. And so I came from very business-minded family, like my dad, my uncles, everybody were. And so definitely, first of all, when I came to US, our intention was not to stay here, was really to go back, because many opportunity that we had. But because of the way things changed, so yes, my plan was go back home and do business. But when I was actually, at my first job is when I was convinced that I'm gonna start my own business. That's when I decided to stay in the United States.
But your first job was during school.
Yeah, well, that one What do you mean? The
I mean,
Vendex?
were your first job meaning here? at
No,
Lawrence
the
Tech?
first job after I graduated as an engineer.
Okay, got
My
it.
first job as an engineer convinced me that that's what I like to do, because I always liked the position of the president, but I knew I couldn't get there. So I knew I had to start my own business to make that happen. I didn't want to compete with the person who gave me a lot of opportunity. Mr. Ralph Schober of GSE is the one who really supported me. Again, another thing I should say is that when I got my first job, I had only practical training. I didn't have green card. So I was the lowest paid engineer there. I mean, they just got me, they said, I mean, at the lowest level that they offered, and I accepted. But when I left, that was in 79 when I joined them. When I left in 85, I was the highest paid engineer next to my manager. And mainly because I really gained and earned, you know, the respect that, you know, I needed. So.
Other questions? Yes, follow on.
So, is there amount of time between when you're working and after that you felt that I'm ready to start my own business?
It starts with the thought process. Everything starts with the thought. So, let me tell you, that actually was one of my, again, I consider it a goal with impossible target. And but that was in early 80. I was at GSE. I didn't have green card, didn't have financial backing. I decided I want to start my own business. So first I had to convince myself. So the one of the way it happened when I got an opportunity to offer, I guess I'm getting ahead of some of the questions I might say.
Go ahead.
But got an offer from Connecticut as a sensor company, and also in California in a sensor company. I decided to take the one from California, obviously, because of the weather and not regulation. And so while I was driving, I took the Rocky Mountain and down to south and toward Texas, and my last stop before getting to California was El Paso, Texas. So I decided over there, I said, I'm going to come up with the name of the business. I made a list, about 100 names, believe it or not. Number 93 was Feature Technology, which I then abbreviated it to FUTEK, F-U-T-E-C-H. So as soon as I arrived in California, the first thing I did was I registered the name. See, I paved the way. And again, from the thought process, that was 81 to 85 that I registered the name, took about 4 years.
So any other questions about Javed's time here at Lawrence Tech, or any learnings? Phil?
Correct me if I misheard this, but you thought of the names while you were on this trip, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I'd like you to comment on something. If necessity is the mother of invention, then I think personally, and this is what I want you to comment on, I think that some sort of leisure time is the father of invention. You have to have the time to think about how to solve the problem. And I think your story about coming up with the name of your company, you had this driving of 30 some odd hours, right? And so you were driving and you were, that is, in some sense, is leisure time. So could you comment on whether or not you think that observation is
Completely correct. That's why I called it thought process. And you're correct. You're correct. Actually, that helped me. Why did I fly? I had the choice of, actually the company would have offered me to bring my car, but I believe in journeys. And it is through the journeys that you gain lots of experiences, and also it allows you time to think. I like to share one story with you, which is not directly related to that, but about 3 years ago, we wanted to hire a help for our customer support side, a technical person. So I interviewed the HR interviewed about so many, and they selected about 3 of them. And the sales couldn't decide. they asked me to select among these three, select one. So I talked to all of them, and one of the one that got my attention, I told him, you know, I like everything about you, but to be honest with you, because you are commuting very far, for about 80 miles, I'm not going to select you. And you know what he answered to me? He said, that wouldn't mean, you wouldn't be doing me a favor. You know why? Because he said, I'm very family person, that when I'm home, I give attention to my family. When I'm at work, I give attention to you. That 80 miles of driving, the only time for myself, you know, and you don't take that away from me, you know. So I hired him, and he has turned out to be one of my, great employee. So yes, those time that you have, I mean, that's why I say, moments are journeys. How you take advantage of that is very important, and that thought process is very important. You know, that's one of the reasons. Like again, as I said, when I was a kid, I kept on telling people I want to go to the U.S., and now I had to make it. You know, and then the same thing, for example, with regard to the business. I kept on talking. Actually, some of my friends would laugh at me when they would call me, let's go out. I said, I'm working on my business. I said, what business? It's only a desk you have, you know. But I took it very serious myself, and that mindset is really important.
Any other questions right now? So, we've talked quite a bit. I've heard many different stories about your journey, and so in the very first few years, like we mentioned before, you went ahead and got married, bought a house, and started a business, right? So can you tell us about those early years of FUTEK and what made the difference and what got you through to where you are today?
The early years of FUTEK was very brutal, let me tell you, because one thing about entrepreneur is, actually that's not, I can get back to this one.
Okay.
I believe, but anyway, the one thing about entrepreneur is that especially I had very good job at Rockpool International. I mean, compensation was very good. I also was hired at a very high level.
Go back one.
And
Go back.
So just giving up, that comfort zone, that paycheck, that takes a lot of guts, first of all. Doing that, and then because once you do that, you practically, your salary goes even completely down to zero, And again, I was married, and as well as I had a house to pay, so we struggled a lot. Actually, when I was in Michigan, I took a class of how to start your own business. That's why I was saying that. I took a lots of, I believe in digging the wells before you get too thirsty. So I took a lots of steps of preparation. And in that class, it told, I completely remember, that told us that what percentage of people don't make it even the first or second year. It was about 90%. And in that class, they said that it takes 7 years before you really can rely on your business. It honestly took us 7 years before we could kind of plan on our business. So we completely struggled. I mean, it was to the point that as a family we worked, like when Zohre joined me, to give you an example, I had a desk with a phone. Then next to that, I had another desk with other CAD that I did design. The next to that was another desk that I made the sensors. So I would make the sales call with the design, would work on the original parts manufacturer.
And where was this?
That was in California.
No, but is that in your home?
The original one was from my bedroom apartment, yes, exactly. Because I started, the FUTEK was originally started a bedroom apartment in '85 at night, obviously. And, but that also was when Mohammed and Zohre were my partner. Mohammed, my brother, who was also, as Mark said, graduated from LTU. He was at the time in Sweden, and because he had taken industrial management, I asked him to come and join me, and which he did back in '89. And so we were ourselves responsible of getting the order, manufacturing, doing the design. I mean, A to Z, we had to do it ourselves. Actually, Zora and I, we had experiences that I would get into the work, she would come and help me, and we had to work on hundreds of sensors. She would go home, make lunch, come back, and then, you know, we would work from 5 to 12 at night, believe it or not. So the formula is you have to believe in what you're doing, because and again, our journey was one of the hardest one because we didn't have any financial backing. We selected just, you know, to build it and accept the hardest way, which through the cash flow. And still, FUTEK, you know, is completely without any financial backing. We actually have, I strongly believe in made in USA. We have lots of equipment there, from CNC machining to the laser welding to the ADM wire cut. I mean, we have invested into our company significantly through the cash flow, completely cash flow. And cash flow is something that I should emphasize. Any entrepreneur, that's the most important part. One of the reasons most businesses fail is because they do not watch the cash flow. Because cash flow is something, I hope you understand, what's going out should be lower than what's coming in. How do you manage that? Now, what helped us was obviously the credit cards and home equity loans. And by 1997, we were in red completely, but we had paved the way. We managed to bring ourselves up. And as soon as it was kind of comfortable and we were in charge of the financial, we decided to buy a building. And that was back in 98. And to give you an example, the feeling, it was like if you attach a concrete block to your feet, jump into the ocean just with one tube to survive. That's what our action was when we bought the building. Took us many years to also overcome that, but that paved the way and helped us significantly to grow the business.
So one of the things you talked about before when we were talking was about some things that you learned back at GSC, and that was involving other people in the product design standpoint and engineering, and seeking other help, and also listening to the customer. Can you expound on that?
Sure, definitely. One of the, again, when I started at GSC, although I was a graduate engineer from LTU, but yet I was surrounded by sharks. I mean, they had lots of experiences. And here I was with no experience. And so I knew I had to work harder. Also, what I consider normally is I have always been surrounded with people with higher IQ than me. But one thing I was strong was EQ. I don't know, does everybody know about EQ? Is emotional, exactly, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a huge factor which I really built up onto that. And I like actually to elaborate on EQ. The best example I can give you on the EQ is that if you guys could recall over 10, 15 years ago when we had, even 10 years ago, when we had peripherals that we had to connect to the computer. Let's say if it was printer or a modem, you have to be technical enough to know what type of connection interface it requires. If you were lucky, the connector would match, otherwise you had to find an adapter. Now, let's say if you would find that it is a serial port, you had to then decide what baud rate of the computer is, what baud rate of the, let's say, the printer is. And then, is it even parity or odd parity? So you had to figure all of these things out and then install the driver. And if everything was done, you had to turn the computer down, and shut it out, and turn it back on again. If you were lucky, it would work the first time. You would get them to handshake and communicate. How do we do it today? Is with the USB. Do you think where it goes? You just, you plug it in, and sometimes you complain, why is it taking 15 seconds to handshake? That's the way it is. Now, EQ is the same way. What is EQ is that, let's say when I meet Mark, first I need to see, is he USB compatible or not? I mean, how much do I know about him? Well, but I have to check the protocols. As a leader, as a person in charge, people that you meet, you need to kind of know how to connect with them, because the main formula or the any successful ingredient is really proper communication. How is the proper communication is done? If first of all, you have to talk the same language, you need to kind of be able to connect. And that charisma, that the way that you manage to connect with people, I consider that that is EQ. And which lots of engineers obviously lack the EQ. They are very good with, very high on IQ. And so for that reason, when at my first job, the sales people who recognized that in me, they would take me on the field trip, and like to GM or Ford others. Why? Because I was able to completely listen. That was another factor, that you have the art of listening. And in the communication, that's another factor which is needed. So I proved that I was patient to listen and also respect, the person I was talking to. That didn't matter at what level they were, and be able to learn from them and produce product. So that definitely helped me at GSE to get attention in the direction that I was getting information from everybody. My product was the result of everybody else's input. I was kind of the director putting it together. And that helped.
So I wanted to point that out, because one of the big things that from product innovation is going ahead and making sure that you have the voice of the customer, and making sure that you're just not designing and developing and producing something that doesn't have a market. And so this is an excellent example of being able to listen to people, not only your customers, but the people that you work with, to make things better. So I'll stop here and see if anybody from the audience has any questions.
Yeah, actually, this picture shows me actually at GSE while I was doing the design. And again, it was very good environment that they challenged us a lot. And one of the things that I strongly believe in that quotation we added over here, is that lots of people say, well, you were lucky you got your first job. I said, yes, the harder you work, the luckier you get. I strongly believe in that. That luck is a result of a lot of action you take ahead of time, and preparation, and that thought process, and being kind of good listeners, and paving the way.
So how many of you are interested in developing a new product? Okay, great. Anybody interested in running their own business? A couple. All right. So it gives you...
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. That gentleman, what's your name? Yeah.
Joey Arrowwood.
Joey, okay. You said you're interested to start your own business or the product?
Both, sir.
Okay. So what's stopping you?
The formal education of the theory of how and why everything works the way it does.
I know, but how are you preparing yourself?
Coming here to LTU.
Good. And any other additional steps you're taking? Because, I mean, what's the time period you're allowing yourself?
10 years.
10 years. Do you strongly believe in what? I mean, why do you think you're going to be able to start a business?
The failure is not an option.
Thank you. That's what got us on Mars. It is. Yes. See, you need to believe in yourself. That's my main point. Trust in yourself and believing in yourself. That's one of the most important part. That's how people will take you serious. And what's your name?
Ryan?
Ryan. And okay, you want to start your own business?
Yeah, both
Okay.
innovation, start my own business.
So, what's your preparation? What are you doing? I know school is definitely one, which is, by the way, that's the wise as a choice you have made. You're in the right place.
Yeah, I'm trying to experience as much as possible, so come to events like this, go into different student organizations, learn from them, as well as visit companies and other universities, see what they're up to and what they're doing currently. So.
Well, why do you think the, let's say, industrial world needs your business?
Looking at where things are right now with science and the way the general public sees science, it's almost, to me, it's obvious that the company I have in mind is needed, because most people aren't educated in science, or they don't like science, and as well as mathematics. They just don't see the A to B or A to C process. So,
Are you building up the networking while you are in the, the process, this journey?
yep, I have a few contacts here, and then back at my previous university, I have contacts in grant writing and different administrative processes like that.
Are you considering financial backing as well, or?
Yeah, I'm looking through the NSF funding, National Science Foundation.
Yeah.
There are a couple grants that I might be able to write for and get money from.
Very good. Let me tell you, I mean, it's definitely doable. Again, as you saw my story, when I decided, didn't have any of the ingredients, I had to build them. So the first thing is to take the action, make the decision and, dream.
Very good. Could you go to the next slide? Could you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, this one actually, this was my second goal while I was in Iran, and I considered it again with the impossible target, was that I was, back in late 60s, I was really impressed and mesmerized with the NASA space program. And my dream was that, God, could I one day meet the, engineers or scientists responsible for that, or meet an astronaut. And so that was always, on my mind, or I was following the space program. So back when I was in California, just trying, to take FUTEK full time, obviously struggling again before Mohammed or Zohre joined me. Right after the Challenger tragedy, Rockwell International approached me. I was referred to them, and to design a miniature load cell for cryogenic environment, which the sensor was supposed to be submerged in liquid oxygen and kind of monitor the status of the valve gate between the oxygen tank and the hydrogen tank, and which was one of the things that they thought had caused the explosion, but it wasn't. So they knew that they had to monitor that. So I got to the opportunity, find a way, and I had to come up with a lot of know-how, because the simple strain gauge would not survive the condition. Again, you have to picture that it's a sensor that has to be extremely sensitive, but still maintaining its characteristic under such a severe environment, such as negative 320 degree Fahrenheit. So I learned a lot about that. And then one day I found myself working alongside the engineers and scientists who were responsible designing the Gemini, as well as the Apollo, and also a space shuttle. And I worked on the Discovery. It was the bird that I worked on, which these are the astronauts that after the Challenger, they took it there. And we had the opportunity, actually, if you go to the next one, I had the opportunity to actually shake hand and meet the astronaut, Dr. Pinky Nelson. And again, my dream came true. I mean, the one from 60, it took about 20 years. And that was something, if you could imagine, being just a student in Tehran, Iran, and dreaming that you want to end up in NASA. Again, 20 years later, that's what happened. And that was, again, really high light of my life. I would say that the amount of attention that goes toward this type of program, you cannot imagine. And how, one thing that I learned wasn't that individual, how well they managed it, and how well everything was inspected, the surveillances and everything. It was completely different experience. Like I went from, let's say, GSC, which was a smaller company and responsible for everything, to a place that you were only responsible for one piece of this whole huge project. That was a high moment, and obviously, again, they honored us with regard to the team who supported the discovery and again brought back a space shuttle into the program.
So, do 2 slides. Go ahead.
Yeah, well,
Go on. We covered a little bit of that.
exactly. That was at the time of the
One more.
of FUTEK.
One more. So we have an opportunity here to learn a little bit more about your journey from taking FUTEK from the early years to your journey of bringing product to Mars. And that took building an organization, that took building products. Can you take us a little bit along your journey about maturing that company and maturing the technology and the things that it took to get to this stage?
Definitely. Well, first of all, the journey, how did we really end up on Mars? Is again, obviously, I had the opportunity to work at Rockwell International on that project that I mentioned, cryogenic load cell. So in 2000, obviously, I have always at FUTEK been involved with the sales and marketing myself. So I remember in 2000, I had one call from NASA Langley in Virginia, and this engineer, Mr. Alan Kilgore, was looking for a source to build him a miniature load cell, cryogenic. So he wanted to kind of place it in a helium tanks, were supporting the motors or something like that. And he was looking for several of them. So anyway, after he told me what his requirements are, I gave him an estimated cost. And the type, yeah, that's this one over here actually. And so about 3-4 weeks passed, I didn't hear from him. Then he called me back again and said, Javad, you remember me? I said, sure. He said that I have called more than 36 companies. You were number 3. You are the only one who tells me that you can do this job. I said, well, you know what happened? My price just tripled. Because if I'm the only one who's going to do it. We actually designed this load cell for him. Not only we met the expectation, we actually exceeded the expectation. And so that he used them, time passed. About 7 years later, 7 years later, one of my solution engineer came to my office and said that JPL is inquiring for a sensor, a cryogenic load cell for a Mars rover. But they want references and they want to make sure that we have the experience and reference. So what did I do? I called Mr. Kilgore and called him, and right away he remembered me. And he said, your sensor is still kicking. You know, I mean and I said, well, can I have a testimonial or some type of reference? He teamed up with my director of quality and made such a recommendation, opened the door to JPL for us. That was, again, that process that we had to go through.
JPL meaning the Jet Propulsion Lab.
From NASA, yeah,
Yes.
NASA JPL, thank you. And, but that wasn't good enough for JPL because they told me, okay, now we know you can design and everything, but we don't trust your soldering and assembly. I said, so they wanted me just to take partial order that we design and they do assembly. I said, no, either I take the whole responsibility or none of it. So they said, you have to go through, we have to come and evaluate you. They came in, evaluated us. They found us that we are actually overqualified for what they wanted. They trusted us. The rest of it was building actually, no, if you go back, please. Yeah, that's that sensor. Actually, I've brought a sample of that. Looks pretty simple, but, and I explained to you why this is so important. That's the one in the center. So we designed 2 sensors for them. That one is, the middle one is in line with in the drilling process. So when the robot, Mars rover robot, is doing the drilling, as you know, drilling is one of the most important part because they have to take the sample. So they want to make sure that they do not break the brake tool or any damage the other part of the drill. So they monitored the sensor in line. Now the sensor, obviously they would not rely on one output. So we have to have multiple output. Now, one thing you need to picture is that this sensor obviously have to be very sensitive, right? But it had to survive the whole impact of the launch going up there. Have to survive the severe environment on the Mars. But it goes through from day to night. So it went through a lot of testing to do that. The other one sensor actually was installed at the robot's arm to monitor all of the forces, moments, and torques when the robot arms were, in action. And again, as you said, like with NASA also, failure is not an option. We couldn't say, well, we have warranty, guarantee, didn't matter. You had to make it work. How do you make a sensor? Again, you might look at it and say, well, that's just a donut. What's the big deal about it? Well, for your information, 3,000 hours was spent on that just simple donut. How? Because on every aspect of it, that every little detail had to be inspected, examined. To give you an idea,
did they have to go up in space once or twice before they
and
adopted
this
it?
one, no, but we had other sensors that had already tested, yes. So, like for a NASA program, for example, the last one we did, we have more than 1,700 pictures that supports every little process. Because the thing when you work, for example, for scientists like that, they contact you and they question you on every step. That how is the wire strand relief? How is the solder? You have to prove the integrity of any connection. And that was the most important part of it, is that making sure your team, you have a quality culture team that can definitely support such a demanding requirement. And imagine if your sensor goes up there and then the news media said, well, the mission is not completed because of the sensor failure. How would you feel you were responsible for that? So that was one of the parts that really we sensed the magnitude of responsibility.
A couple of questions, I think. Go ahead, Phil.
How much does that weigh?
Actually, it's I would say about 2 ounces.
How much was it allowed to weigh?
Oh, as low as possible.
Right, $10,000 a pound to put something
Thank
in
you,
orbit.
thank you, yes.
But I'm just...
Very good point, because normally sensors of this capacity are very large. Thank you. That's a very good point. In all of the cases, like that one was out of titanium, aluminum and titanium was the end product. The weight was one of the major requirements. Thank you. Yeah, and those were the challenging part of it. And also, not only that, like for example, after we delivered this, the unit that they used to JPL, for 4 years they were testing it at NASA JPL. And even after 4 years, they came to FUTEK, they still examined many things to make sure before they put it over. As you know, thousands of people supported that program. That's how they made it happen.
So you see a little bit of the where your technology
Exactly.
resides. So it's one of the first elements that explores Mars.
Right, exactly. And took our DNA over
Yeah,
there, by the way.
very good. Go to the next slide, because I want to. We talk a lot about product development, product ideas, and you can see that these ideas can strike you anytime. And so I want to open it up to some questions about if anybody has any questions regarding what Java was talking about his specific product, or about the process of innovation. Elin.
So, as the president of the company, have you been able to stay involved in the technical part of the idea development as much as you would like, or how do you manage that?
Yes.
Meeting.
Thank you. Yes, actually, I have, and I'm still the visionary in our company, and I'm the one who drive them. To give you an idea, actually, is I put a few of the product in my pocket, the small one, and yeah, this one is a good one. Like for example, to give you an idea, this is a rotary torque sensor in line. Now, the standard in the market is this large, okay? But I wanted to get into the like medical robotics. And as you know, that what the surgeons are very good at is sensing the torque when they are during the surgery, like at any, for different operation. So we find out that one of the challenges is that they have to monitor the torque. Now, it didn't exist. So I went to my team and said, we need a rotary torque sensor. Again, I don't have a picture, but normally they are about 3 inches or 2.5 inches in diameter or so. So it needs to be small. And challenge the team. And I teamed up with them. I actually helped together. So yes, my vision is still my drive. I'm really the driver because my team are very dynamic and always busy. And I'm the one, like for example, our USB module was another one. That one of the reasons we designed that and wanted it small was that a sensor is normally an intimidating factor for engineers. Why? Because the mechanical engineer selects it, but he doesn't know how to connect it or interface it. So what we did was, that was my idea. I came up and said, well, let's make USB compatible. So this way, you just plug it into there, we have software, and it works. You don't have to do any wiring, you don't have to do any interfacing. So definitely, yes, I'm still involved with that mainly. And how do I do that? Obviously, one of the things I believe in strongly is, again, effective communication. How do you create effective communication? Is the face-to-face type of interfaces. So back in 2003, August of 2003, I decided, because some of the surprises that I heard, I decided that all the key employees and myself, we have to meet every single morning at 7 o'clock, And so I said, since the meeting is going to start at 7, I call it 6:59 meeting. Like everybody should be there at 6:59. So we start the meeting at, so 6:59 group or meeting is very well known at FUTEK. And at the first 2 years, I was the one just talking in the meeting because everybody was coming by my force, They weren't coming there voluntarily. But after 2 years, it became culture. Now, even I haven't been there, but we have not only every day, since 2003, we have been having those 6:59 meetings. They're all with minutes, action, follow-up action. So we communicate. So when I sit with the, let's say, the head of the quality, the machine shop, purchasing, engineering, sales, and then first of all, I get to check their energy level. I check their pulses. If I see somebody, I shouldn't rely on that. I try to support him. And somebody is very energetic, I try to share ideas with him. So that 6:59 meeting has helped us significantly. We practically don't have any surprises at FUTEK. Again, company our size, and I'm very well connected to my employee. I know every employee with their first name. Maybe some of them are Vietnamese, Cambodian, or others. And I require it from others. You cannot call somebody, hey, come here. You have to call them by name. So yes, I'm still connected.
Go ahead, Joe.
I'll start off with a quote from Thomas Edison. I have not failed, I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work.
That's so true. That's so true.
But on the topic of communication there, one of the things I've learned from my time in the military was if there's a fear in the communication line, communication always goes from the top to the bottom. When you're at the very bottom of the totem pole as a fresh engineer in the company, you're always afraid to come up to the president or the head of your department. Sir, ma'am, there's a problem with this. So people tend to keep it quiet and within their small group, people that they're comfortable talking with. If communication is open and everybody is friendly with everybody else, it paves the way for a much nicer company, better people to work with.
Completely agree. And for that reason, we have open door policy, but you know how I control it? It's open door, but depending on how much the door is ajar, they know if they should interrupt me or not. If it is, when it is that close, it has to be very important to interrupt me. But when it's that much, they can wait behind, and so if it is wide open, they can come in. And so I control it that way. But since we have this is very interesting. Actually, back in, it was late 90, I was dealing with the company FUTEK, and in order to give us order, they wanted the organizational chart. So I remember I was at the border with my wife and her sister over there, and I decided to say, okay, what's FUTEK organizational chart? Because myself and my partner were at top of everything. So, and how would I present it to the larger company? So first I came up with this one. Then I looked at it, I said, wait a minute, it is not us, because we do not have, we are not pyramid type, and we do not have level of, first of all, we value everybody the same, So then I came up with that idea, which is more solar. So, but if you notice, I put CEO and CFO in the center, and then other departments in there. Then, please go to the next one. That one again, when I came back to the office, I redrew it to present it. And after meeting all of us together, which actually before I get to that, this is one thing we also extremely believe in, that customer service is not really a department, it's an attitude. It's so important that everybody, because customer, lots of time you think that customer is outside. People internally that you deal with are also your customers. When I go to a department, the person, let's say, who is providing the service, that's, I'm their customer. So the attitude is very important. Please go to the next one. So, and next. Yeah. So this one, after we met, we found out that no, it's not, the CEO and CFO are not center of attention. Who is the center of attention is customer and customer support. And what's beautiful about that is that we have information technology around that, then management controlling that, but everybody is in the loop. So that's how our organization is. And that is why that communication that you said is very much, we are connected. Again, with 659 meeting, everybody is in the loop. Not only that, not only we do 659 meeting, the lead of each department have to have meeting right after our meeting, go talk to their team and pass that. So on daily basis, good news or bad news are shared. And we don't believe in blaming each other, but we accept our failure. And what my answer normally is, well, let's find this, what's the solution. Another story I'd like to share is when I hire new people, like this is one example. I had this person for industrial on the manufacturing side we hired, and he would go after a few months, he did his research. He came to my office kind of a surprise, bringing me bad news, that, Jawad, how much problem we have in machine shop, and, things are vested and things like that. And I had a smile on my face. I said, that's great news. He said, why is it great news? I said, if we are running this business with all of this problem and you're going to come and solve it, that is the way I looked at the things, is that, there are a reason we are in business, but we are not perfect. What can we do to improve it? So that encouraging everybody or listening to them and making sure they take ownership and you value their effort, that's very important.
There was another question back here. Marie, go ahead.
I saw that when you graduated from Lawrence Tech, you first worked for someone else. Do you think that this is something that is important when you create the business, is first have an opportunity to work for someone else, such that you know what you really, is your business connected to what you worked before? Did you take the customers of the other company with you? Exactly how did that transition happen, and is it important or not, or people should just start the business out of college?
No, very good question. I highly recommend the experience. Highly recommend it, because that opens your eyes, I mean, one of the things I always say is that, as this gentleman said with regard to Thomas Edison, yes, you can fail 1,500 times, but capitalize on other people's failure. Why do you want to, experience all of them yourself? I highly recommend that experience of the first one. What was the second comment?
The second one is when I do not understand if you started your business.
Oh, I see.
It was the same business of what you were doing before. And how did your customers?
Very good, actually, yes, very good question. And yes, I definitely used the experience, but I did not go after their customer. Why? For a very good reason. I decided on the strategy of marketing strategy of FUTEK at the early time. You know, I had two choices. I had to go with the red ocean strategy or blue ocean strategy. Red ocean was, it is bloody battle. I have to go there, cut my price, and then to be able to get in there. I knew that wasn't FUTEK. What's blue ocean? Blue ocean is innovation plus values. So there is a reason that you approach. So we, my brother and I, Mohammed and I, we took the hardest way. We had opportunities for red ocean and markets that we could get in there, get order based on their cutting price. We selected not to do that. With that, we took the hardest way. That meant was finding our own niche market. And also, you know, like for example, as I said, like most of our product, like the one that I was showing for NASA, the NASA Langley, normally these were very large size product. We always challenge ourselves, no, let's make them smaller. For the very good reason that was brought up was that, you know, for testing an airplane or car, weight is also important. So we took the innovative way, and that has helped us. One of the reasons we got on Mars, one of the reasons we are in this medical company is because of our attitude. We never ever go to a company and say, you know, win a contract with by cutting prices. Never do that. And for that reason, I don't believe FUTEK has any competition or competitor because we create our own market. Practically like what Apple, let's say, has done. That, you know, you kind of find a market that appreciates your value, you know, what as a package deal what you provide. And we are not the lowest price in the market at all. Again, we manufacture our sensors in Irvine, California. And it's one of the very, you know, expensive place that you could be in California. And we manufacture it there, but very smart way. One of the things I like to add is, like, for example, in 2004, we wanted to grow the company. And when I approached my partner, Mohammed, and the team, and everybody thought we're going to buy another building. I said, no, you know, I want to grow the pie, but I don't want to cut it in pieces. And so I said, like, I noticed our stock, and the building was about 20,000 square feet. Our stock room was taking altogether, machine shop, everything was taking was 6,500 square feet of just stocking part. So since I had visited companies in Europe and I had seen, I said, well, no, let's use automated vertical stock, which and be able to go through the almost roof, and that way the parts come to you. So practically, we took 6,500 square foot, freed up with an area almost this size to the ceiling, and not only that helped us. And at that time, in 2004, our stock room was being controlled or supported with 3 people. Mohammed, my partner, was planning to add 2 more people in 2004 for our stock. At that time, our activity was 1/5 of what we are today. Today, our stock room is handled by 1 and 1 backup. One person. Everything is very well organized. Julia has been there, and Steve have been there. They have seen it, and everything very well organized. So again, going back to how smart you work, also how solution-minded you are, and it's not always just, you know, that's the way it is done. No, find a way and make it happen. And I believe I mentioned earlier, doing business in this era remind me of TV program Mission Impossible. How do you make it possible with the team, with the program that you put together?
Very good. So we're wrapping up here real quick, but I'd like for you to talk a little bit about your journey, because I think this slide that you provided really talks to what you've talked about all day today and your career since you've really before leaving Iran. You've always dreamed big. You've talked about having an impossible dream and setting really high standards. So can you talk to us just a little bit about this?
Definitely. Actually, you know, I mentioned about my 3 impossible goals, goals with the impossible targets, which one of them was leaving Iran, the other one was that meeting the astronauts or other, and the third one was starting the business, FUTEK. The fourth one, I always challenge myself. What was the fourth one? Was my dream going to Mars. I mean, back in the late 90 and early 2000, my passion has been to go to Mars. The reason I haven't gone, well, first of all, my wife doesn't like to go with me. Secondly, but at least I can claim that we have our DNA on Mars with the 2 sensors that we have on the rover. Now, another thing I want to mention is, so one is really dream big, because things that happens to you come and support you in that. And one of the major one is attitude. And I know I like to repeat that again. Attitude is so important about your achievement, how it helps you to achieve. Bad attitude, anger, frustration, again, is like driving your car with the handbrake on. Yeah, emergency brakes on. You have to release those. You know, one of my, and also you need to know how, in any environment that you are put in, know how to adjust yourself to an environment. Actually, I like to share another story. Was during my good humor time, selling ice cream, and it was the first year I was here, and obviously somebody like me that would just go apply for a job, they would use you as a fill-in type of a position. And Peter, who was the manager, recognized that I'm very green. I don't know the area at all. So where do you think he sent me? He sent me to Gratian and Acres. I remember when I went over there, later on, I found out that 6 months before that, 2 people before me were killed in that area from Gotima Ice Cream Man. So when I arrived in that area, obviously there were kids all over the street, and I believe it was the second day I was approached by 2 gangster or guys, and one with a knife and one with a handgun, and came to me and they said, you know what's the rule of this street? I said, well, what's the rule? They said, well, free ice cream. I said, wait a minute. I drove all the way to come to give you free ice cream. I come here to do business. And no, I make the rule. You want ice cream, you need to, you know, either pay or work for it. So anyway, I found out that I have to somehow connect with them. So I, believe it or not, after 3 days, they were guarding me, because I told them, I said that you guys help me to line up people. The more ice cream I sell, then the end of the day, I deal with you guys. And it helped me. Not only they guard me, they assisted me, and it was very funny. Later on, Peter would tell me that people are asking for you to go back over there, believe it or not. Now, why would I want to go back there? Because over there, the kids would eat ice cream 3 times a day. So I was able to make like about 180 to 200, not make, but sell to $200. While in the Farmington area, I didn't matter, even if I worked 10 or 12 hours, I hardly could sell $60 because the kids would eat ice cream only once a week. So my point is that if you want, you know, everything is a package deal. Opportunity was in that area. That's why I trained myself that, you know, how do I connect with them to be able to do business in there. So how you adjust yourself is very important. It's very easy to come up with excuses. Well, you know, many of them. But I always believe there are many opportunities in a lots of chaos and, you know, things that other people might not know.
So I think you just covered attitude, communication, anticipation, listening, and EQ, and came up with a solution in very early on delivering ice cream.
And most of all, calibrate your expectation and enjoy the journey.
Yes, so.
That's, you know, you have to value every moment, every second. That's so important.
So very good. So, you know, in 1979, when Javed graduated, the world was a much different place. We had the Sony Walkman was the first time that it went on sale. Voyager 1 made its closest approach to Jupiter. Margaret Thatcher became the Prime Minister of England. McDonald's launched its first Happy Meal. And so the eradication of smallpox virus was certified. A lot of things, but there's also some turmoil going on in your country.
Hostage
crisis.
Yes.
And so, again, this kind of dreaming big attitude, and here you are today. And so, can we tee up the last video?
Ready. We're down to 86 meters per second at an altitude of 4 kilometers and descending. We've lost tones from Earth at this time. This is expected. We're continuing on Odyssey telemetry.
Ground solution equals minus 10.8 meters, vertical velocity of minus 82.8 meters per second.
Start enabled, standing by for
I can
backshell
see a little
separation.
bit of anticipation on everyone's. How are you
Signal
doing during
Odyssey
this?
still strong.
So this is the
We are in power
landing
flight.
of the Mars rover.
We're at altitude of 1 kilometer descending, about 70 meters per second.
Signal to Odyssey remains
Down to 50 meters per second. 500 meters in altitude. Standing by for
Show the
Skycrane.
landing or not?
constant velocity accordion nominal, altitude error 5.9 meters.
We found a nice flat place. We're coming in ready for Skycrane. Down to 10 meters per second. 40 meters altitude. Skycrane has started. Descending at about 0.75 meters per second as expected. Expecting bridle cut shortly.
Signal to Odyssey remains strong.
Tango Delta nominal.
Yeah. EagleCom configured.
Review stable.
Telemetry.
Review stable.
UHF is good. Touchdown confirmed. We're safe on Mars. Time to see where our curiosity will take us.
Anytime you Google the Mars rover and you see or hear news about it making a new discovery, it's
Yeah, I
time.
highly recommend to see the whole. I don't know if how many of you guys have watched the actual landing. It's really interesting. It's amazing what they have done. It's amazing.
Any final questions? Thank you very much
you
for
very
being
much.
here. Yes, go ahead. Very good. Joey?
Done.
Slide number 2, please.
That's done.
No, slide number, go one more.
One more.
One more? Oh, that's right. What happened to your hair?
Well, 120 employees.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.